Part 1. Introduction: The Mystery of the Moon. For as long as human beings have looked up at the night sky, one celestial body has drawn more attention, more reverence, and more curiosity than any other. The moon has been our constant companion, a silent presence hanging above our world like a lantern in the darkness. It is so familiar, so seemingly ordinary, that most of us take it for granted. We measure our months by its cycles, we marvel at its glow, and we feel a strange sense of comfort when we see it rise. Yet hidden beneath that sense of normalcy lies a mystery so profound that it challenges everything we think we know about our planet, our history, and perhaps even our place in the universe. The moon, the very object we assume is simply there, may not be what it seems. When scientists began to study the moon in greater detail, especially during and after the Apollo missions, they encountered puzzles that still defy easy explanation. The moon is unusually large compared to the planet it orbits. In fact, it is so large relative to Earth that some astronomers argue our world and its satellite should be considered a double-planet system rather than a planet with a moon. Its orbit is also uncanny. Positioned at just the right distance, the moon appears in our sky almost exactly the same size as the sun. That is why we're able to witness total solar eclipses, in which the moon perfectly covers the sun's disk, revealing its shimmering corona. If the moon were slightly closer or slightly farther away, these awe-inspiring eclipses would not be possible. To call this a coincidence feels inadequate. It is as though the moon was placed with precision, designed to fit its role. The mystery deepens when we consider its origins. For centuries, scientists debated how the moon came to be. Did it split off from the young Earth in some cataclysmic event? Was it captured by our planet's gravity after forming elsewhere in the solar system? Or did it emerge at the same time and place as Earth, coalescing from the same cloud of dust and gas? Each theory had serious flaws. The fission idea could not explain the moon's orbit. The capture theory seemed mechanically implausible, as seizing a body that large would almost certainly send it spinning off into space. The co-formation model struggled with the moon's unusual composition. Eventually, the prevailing hypothesis became the giant impact theory, the idea that a Mars-sized body collided with early Earth, and the debris from that colossal impact eventually formed the moon. It's a compelling narrative, but it too leaves critical questions unanswered. Why is the moon's composition so similar to Earth's outer layers, yet missing expected amounts of heavy elements? Why does its seismic data suggest it rings like a bell, as if it's strangely hollow inside? Why does it rotate in perfect lockstep with its orbit, always showing us the same face, forever hiding its far side from our view? These are not trivial curiosities, they're anomalies that hint at something deeper. The moon exerts an influence on Earth that goes far beyond what we might expect from a simple satellite. Its gravitational pull creates the tides, which not only shape coastlines, but also played a vital role in the development of life. Some scientists believe that without the tidal rhythms driven by the moon, life might never have made the leap from the oceans to the land. The moon also stabilizes Earth's axial tilt. Without it, our planet could wobble chaotically over long timescales, causing climate swings so severe that advanced life might never have evolved. In other words, the moon does not just accompany Earth, it sustains it. Its presence appears to be a prerequisite for the flourishing of life as we know it. This is where the speculation turns extraordinary. If the moon's size, distance, and orbit are so improbably perfect, if its influence is so essential for life, and if its origins remain so unclear, then perhaps it is not entirely natural at all. Perhaps it was engineered, placed deliberately where it is, constructed or modified by some intelligence with a purpose in mind. This is not mainstream science, of course, But it is a question that has lingered at the edges of both science and myth. What if the moon was built to watch over us? Ancient cultures may have sensed something unusual about our lunar companion long before modern astronomy raised its own doubts. Across civilizations, the moon was more than a rock in the sky. It was alive, conscious, divine. In Mesopotamia, the moon god Sin was revered as the keeper of time itself. The Egyptians associated the moon with Thoth, god of wisdom and knowledge. The Chinese told stories of Chang'e, the goddess who dwelled on the moon in an eternal palace, watching over humanity. Native American tribes spoke of the moon as a guardian spirit, ensuring balance in the world. Again and again, across space and time, people described the moon not as a passive object, but as an active presence, a kind of celestial overseer. Were these just poetic myths, or were they dim cultural memories of something our ancestors somehow intuited, that the moon was not simply there by accident? In the 1970s, two Soviet scientists, Mikhail Vosin and Alexander Sherbakov, proposed a radical idea in an article that stunned readers. Titled, "Is the Moon the Creation of Alien Intelligence?" Their paper suggested that the moon might actually be an enormous, hollow, artificial satellite, essentially a space station, placed in orbit around Earth to monitor or even control it. They pointed to its strange density, its seismic behavior, its perfect orbit, and its perfectly timed influence on Earth's systems. Mainstream scientists dismissed the claim as pseudoscience, but the idea never completely went away. It resurfaces again and again, fueled by the oddities that conventional explanations still cannot fully resolve. Even respected astronomers have remarked on the moon's uncanny nature. Erwin Shapiro once quipped, "The best explanation for the moon is observational error. The moon does not exist." He was joking, but the underlying point was serious. The moon is so strange that it defies easy explanation. And if the simplest explanation doesn't satisfy, then perhaps the most radical one deserves to be considered. If the moon was built, if it was placed deliberately in its orbit, then the obvious question becomes, by whom and for what purpose? Was it the work of extraterrestrial intelligences long before recorded history? Could it have been the creation of an advanced human civilization now lost to time? Or is it part of some deeper cosmic design, a mechanism meant to guide the evolution of life on Earth and ensure that one day a species like us would emerge to look up, wonder, and finally begin to ask the right questions? For most of us, the moon is a comfort. It's the glow in the night sky, the companion to lovers and dreamers, the metronome of months and seasons. But beneath that familiarity lies a riddle. The moon should not be there the way it is. Its presence is too perfect, its role too crucial, and its origins too murky. And so we must dare to ask, what if the moon is not simply a moon? What if it is a construct, a watchtower, an artifact placed in the heavens for a reason we are only beginning to grasp? Part 2. The artificial moon hypothesis. Who built it and why? If the moon is more than just a natural satellite, then the first question we must face is both thrilling and unsettling. Who or what built it? And equally important, why would anyone construct something so vast, so ancient, and so carefully placed in orbit around our planet? These questions may sound like the domain of science fiction, but the anomalies we've already uncovered invite us to at least consider the possibility that intelligence played a role in shaping the moon. Let's begin with the engineering challenge itself. The moon is nearly 2,200 miles in diameter. To hollow it out, reinforce it, and move it into orbit would require an unimaginable mastery of materials, energy, and propulsion. To put it in perspective, Our most advanced human engineering feats, the International Space Station, the Great Wall of China, the Saturn V rocket, are like grains of sand compared to the scope of a lunar-scale megastructure. If the moon is artificial, its creators would have been a civilization far beyond our own, wielding technologies so advanced they might appear indistinguishable from magic. The very existence of such an artifact would imply not only that we are not alone in the universe, but that powerful intelligences have been watching Earth for eons. The hollow moon idea is often dismissed, but it has its roots in real data. During the Apollo 12 mission in 1969, astronauts placed seismic instruments on the lunar surface. When the spent ascent stage of the lunar module was deliberately crashed into the moon, the seismic shock waves reverberated far longer than expected. NASA scientists famously remarked that the moon rang like a bell. The vibrations persisted for nearly an hour, suggesting that its internal structure was not what one would expect from a solid rocky body. Later Apollo missions confirmed similar results. While mainstream explanations focus on the moon's dry, fractured crust and lack of water to dampen vibrations, the data nonetheless fueled speculation that its interior might be at least partially hollow, or that it contained vast, cavernous voids. If we entertain the possibility of artificial construction, we must then ask, what purpose would such a colossal object serve? Several theories have emerged. The first is surveillance. Positioned in a perfect synchronous orbit, always showing one face to Earth, the moon could function as the ultimate watchtower. Its far side, forever hidden from human eyes until the space age, would be an ideal location for observation equipment, bases, or transmitters. From there, an advanced intelligence could monitor our planet discreetly, influencing events when necessary, ensuring that Earth developed along a particular path. The notion of the moon as a giant eye in the sky aligns with countless myths and legends that describe it as a watchful deity, a guardian, or even a judge of human behavior. Another theory is that the moon was placed here to serve as a stabilizer. As we've already seen, without the moon, Earth's axial tilt could wobble unpredictably, producing climate chaos. Perhaps the moon was not built to observe us, but to nurture us, to ensure that life had the stability it needed to flourish. If this is true, then the moon might be less a surveillance station and more a kind of cosmic incubator, a tool designed to seed and safeguard life on this planet. Imagine an ancient civilization wandering the stars, scattering the seeds of biology across worlds. They would need mechanisms to ensure that those seeds could take root. A moon like ours could be one of those mechanisms, a quiet guardian, ensuring the experiment of life had the best chance to succeed. There is also the darker possibility, control. What if the moon is not merely watching, not merely stabilizing, but actively influencing? The moon's gravitational pull shapes our tides, our biological rhythms, even our psychology. Studies have shown correlations, however debated, between lunar cycles and human behavior, with full moons long associated with heightened emotions, strange incidents, and even madness. If the moon were designed, perhaps its role is not only physical, but also psychological, subtly shaping the evolution of consciousness itself. Could it be that the rhythms we feel, the cycles we live by, have been imposed upon us deliberately, a quiet form of programming written into the very fabric of our reality? When we look to ancient myths, we find strange echoes of this idea. Some traditions claim that the moon was not always in the sky.
The Zulu people of South Africa tell stories of a time before the moon, when the world was shrouded in perpetual twilight. According to legend, two brothers, known as the sky gods, rolled the moon into place and fixed it in the heavens. Other cultures also preserve tales of a time when humanity lived without the moon, and its sudden arrival changed everything. Could these myths be distorted memories of a time when the moon was installed, brought here deliberately in full view of our distant ancestors? And then there is the question of timing. The moon has been with Earth for billions of years, but in cosmic terms, that is still a blink of an eye. If the moon was placed, was it part of a plan stretching across galactic timescales? Some speculate that its creators may have been ancient extraterrestrial visitors, perhaps members of a civilization that roamed the Milky Way long before humanity ever walked upright. Others propose a wilder idea, that the moon could be a remnant of a prior terrestrial civilization, one so advanced it managed to build technologies we can barely imagine before succumbing to catastrophe and leaving behind the greatest monument of all. Skeptics, of course, argue that these ideas are unnecessary. The giant impact hypothesis may not be perfect, but it provides a plausible natural explanation. The moon's anomalies, they say, are simply quirks of geology and physics, not evidence of alien engineering. Yet skepticism itself cannot erase the allure of the question. If even one of these anomalies points toward an artificial origin, the implications would be staggering. The moon would no longer be a passive companion, but a deliberate artifact, a message in the sky, written not in words but in stone, orbit, and silence. Consider what it would mean if this were true. Humanity has long searched for signs of extraterrestrial intelligence, straining our radio telescopes for faint signals across the stars. But what if the greatest signal of all has been right above us the entire time, glowing in the night sky, hiding in plain sight? A megastructure so vast we mistook it for a natural satellite. A construct so perfectly disguised that it escaped notice, even as it shaped the very conditions that allowed us to exist. The artificial moon hypothesis is ultimately a story about possibility. It challenges us to imagine that we are part of a larger narrative, that our planet has been touched by forces beyond our comprehension. Whether those forces were benevolent gardeners seeding life, cold overseers running an experiment, or something stranger still, the implication is the same. Humanity is not alone, and our history is far richer, deeper, and more mysterious than we ever suspected. The question remains, though, if the moon was built, what clues would its creators have left behind? And if they meant for us to discover its true nature, what secrets are still waiting on its far side, in its craters, in the silence of its dust? Perhaps the next step is not just to gaze up and wonder, but to go back, to explore more deeply than ever before, and to ask the moon itself to reveal what it really is.
Part 3. Evidence and Anomalies. What doesn't add up? For most of human history, the moon was a mystery beyond our reach. We could see its bright surface, its scars of craters, and its shifting phases, but we could not touch it, measure it, or study it in detail. That changed in the 20th century, when space agencies finally sent probes, orbiters, and human explorers to its surface. And what they found, instead of bringing clarity, only deepened the enigma. The first anomaly lies in the moon's orbit itself. Astronomers know that natural satellites tend to fall into certain patterns, depending on how they formed. Yet the moon's orbit does not fit neatly into any of those categories. Its size relative to Earth is bizarrely large. Its path is nearly circular, with a slight eccentricity that still keeps it at just the right distance to produce perfect solar eclipses. In fact, no other known moon in our solar system produces such precise alignments. The odds of this happening purely by chance are extraordinarily low, and yet here it is, our moon, positioned as though it were carefully placed. Then there is the matter of its synchronous rotation. The moon spins at exactly the right speed to keep one face perpetually turned toward Earth. We call it tidal locking, and while it is not unique in the universe, the precision of this lock, combined with the moon's stabilizing role on Earth's axis, creates the impression of a finely tuned system. Was this an accident of celestial mechanics, or was it designed? The question lingers unanswered. When humanity finally set foot on the moon during the Apollo missions, new anomalies emerged. One of the most famous came in 1969, when the Apollo 12 mission deliberately crashed the spent lunar module onto the moon's surface. The resulting seismic shock made the moon ring like a bell for nearly an hour. Later missions confirmed that impacts produced vibrations lasting far longer than expected. Some scientists attributed this to the moon's dry, fractured crust, but others wondered if the structure beneath was far stranger than assumed. Was the moon partially hollow, riddled with vast caverns, or even engineered to absorb impacts in unusual ways? The distribution of mass within the moon also raises questions. Data from orbiters revealed that certain regions beneath the lunar surface, known as mass cons or mass concentrations, are inexplicably dense. These mass cons disrupt spacecraft orbits and remain poorly understood. Mainstream science suggests they are remnants of ancient asteroid impacts, but their exact nature continues to puzzle researchers. To those entertaining the artificial moon hypothesis, mass cons could be the signatures of immense structures hidden beneath the dust. Foundations, reinforcements, or even machinery. Another anomaly is the moon's composition. Samples brought back by Apollo astronauts revealed that lunar rocks are shockingly old, some even older than Earth itself. How could a body that supposedly formed from a collision with Earth contain material predating its parent planet? And why do lunar rocks contain unusual isotopes not commonly found on Earth, such as high levels of titanium? Some of these materials are extraordinarily difficult to work with, even for modern industry. To speculate that an ancient intelligence engineered the moon using exotic metals may sound outlandish, but the evidence is strange enough to keep the idea alive. We must also consider the moon's crust. In some places, it is unexpectedly shallow. In others, it is far too thick. There seems to be no clear geological reason for this irregularity, and yet it persists across the lunar surface. Even more intriguing is the fact that the far side of the moon, the side we never see from Earth, differs dramatically from the near side. It is more heavily cratered, with a much thicker crust and far fewer of the large, dark basalt plains that dominate the side facing us. Why should one hemisphere be so different from the other? If the moon were constructed or modified, perhaps this asymmetry is not random at all, but deliberate, a design with purpose. Beyond geology, there are also mysteries of human perception and memory. Ancient myths from diverse cultures speak of a time when the moon was not in the sky. How could such a claim exist? The Zulu people of South Africa describe two brothers rolling the moon into place. The Colombian Muisca tell of a time before the moon's light touched Earth. The Greeks, too, had legends of the Procelones, people who lived before the moon appeared. Are these mere stories or echoes of something our ancestors witnessed long ago? Stranger still, there have been unexplained phenomena observed on the moon itself. Astronomers for centuries have reported so-called transient lunar phenomena, flashes of light, glows, or mysterious moving shadows. Some of these could be explained by outgassing, impacts, or reflections, but others remain unsolved. Could they be hints of activity, relics of ancient technology still stirring beneath the surface? Even in modern times, questions linger. During the Apollo missions, astronauts reported hearing strange music or eerie radio interference when passing behind the moon, shielded from Earth's signals. NASA attributed it to radio disturbances, but the story has fueled speculation ever since. Was it feedback from equipment or something else? Taken individually, each of these anomalies might be dismissed. Yet together, they paint a portrait of the moon as far more mysterious than a simple ball of rock. It is a world that does not fully reveal its secrets, a companion whose origins remain clouded in uncertainty. Skeptics insist that all of this has natural explanations. The orbit, the tidal lock, the mascons, the seismic ringing, each has scientific theories attached to it. Yet none of these theories are fully complete. None close the case, and that leaves a lingering possibility that the moon is not simply what it appears to be. If it were artificial, if it were engineered or modified in some way, then the anomalies are not problems to be explained away. They are the very fingerprints of its creators. The ringing after impacts might be the echo of hollow chambers. The mascons might be the remnants of colossal foundations. The unusual rocks might be the construction materials of an ancient intelligence. The myths of a time before the moon might be fragmented memories of its installation. What makes this idea so compelling is not only the strangeness of the evidence, but the stakes of the question itself. If the moon is artificial, then we live beneath a structure of unimaginable scale and purpose. It would mean that our history, our evolution, perhaps even our consciousness, has been shaped not only by natural forces, but by the intentions of others, beings whose motives we can only guess at. The anomalies do not prove this hypothesis, but they do invite us to keep asking, to look again at the familiar face in the sky, not with complacency, but with wonder. For the moon is not just a companion, it is a riddle, and every riddle waits for an answer.
Part 4. Ancient Myths and Forgotten Memories of the Moon. Long before the Apollo missions, long before telescopes and modern science, humanity wove stories to explain the moon's constant presence in the sky. For countless generations, it was more than a pale companion. It was a god, a guardian, a lover, and sometimes a menace. But within these myths lies something strange. Whispers of a time when the moon was not there at all. If true, these ancient memories could be more than poetry. They might be fragments of history, distorted but not entirely erased. The Greek historian Aristotle recorded tales of the Procelones, literally the people before the moon. The Arcadians of central Greece claimed their ancestors lived before the moon was placed in the heavens, wandering under a twilight sky. This was not a minor myth. It was central to their identity, woven into their very name. How could such a story exist unless there was at least some echo of reality behind it? The Zulu of southern Africa tell a similar story. In their oral tradition, the moon was brought to earth by two brothers, Mpanku and Wayne, who rolled it across the sky like a great white egg. Before that time, they say, the world was in perpetual twilight, and people lived without the rhythms of day and night that we now take for granted. The Colombian Ruska also spoke of a pre-lunar age, as did certain Native American tribes. Separated by oceans, by millennia, these cultures nonetheless preserve the same strange memory. There was once a time before the moon. Mainstream historians treat these stories as metaphor, allegory, or coincidence. But if we consider the possibility that the moon was not always in the sky, that it was placed there, then these myths take on a new significance. Perhaps they are not mere legends, but cultural fossils of an event so profound that it imprinted itself on the human psyche. Beyond the before the moon tales are the stories of the moon as a conscious being. In Mesopotamia, the moon god Sin, also called Nana, was a watchful presence, recording the passage of time and overseeing human destiny. In Egypt, the god Tuth, often associated with the moon, was the keeper of wisdom, mathematics, and cosmic order. In China, the moon goddess Chang'e dwelt eternally on the lunar surface, a silent watcher over humanity. Across the Americas, from the Inca to the Cherokee, the moon was revered as a powerful spirit, often linked to fertility, cycles, and the mysteries of life itself. What is striking is how many of these myths describe the moon not as a passive object, but as an active intelligence. It is portrayed as knowing, deliberate, sometimes benevolent, sometimes judgmental. Could these stories reflect the intuition or even the distant knowledge that the moon's presence is not simply natural, but purposeful? That behind its pale face lies intention. Another fascinating aspect is the association of the moon with control over human behavior. The very word lunacy derives from luna, the Latin word for moon. For centuries, people believed that the full moon could drive men to madness, inspire violence, or awaken hidden powers. Farmers planted crops according to lunar cycles. Women's fertility was linked to its phases. Even today, hospitals and police departments often report spikes in activity during full moons. Whether coincidence, psychology, or something more mysterious, the moon seems to exert an influence not only on the oceans and the tides, but on the human mind itself. If we view the moon as artificial, these influences could be more than side effects. They could be features. Imagine a structure placed in orbit not only to stabilize the planet physically, but also to shape its inhabitants biologically and psychologically. Myths of madness under the moon, of divine oversight, of cycles of fertility and death may all be echoes of this subtle programming. One of the most enduring myths is that of Atlantis, the great lost civilization said to have perished in a cataclysm. Some researchers have speculated that the fall of Atlantis was connected to changes in the moon or to knowledge hidden there. The idea is speculative, but tantalizing. Perhaps ancient civilizations knew the moon's true nature, but that knowledge was lost in the flood of time, surviving only in scattered fragments of legend. Even the Bible contains curious hints. In Genesis, the moon is described as the lesser light set in the heavens to rule the night, as if it were deliberately placed. The book of Job speaks of the moon walking in brightness. These are poetic lines, but they reinforce the notion that ancient people did not see the moon as accidental. They saw it as appointed, intentional, a light given to earth for a reason. If the moon was built, then the myths may be our most ancient record of that truth. They are garbled, wrapped in metaphor, colored by culture, but they persist across continents and centuries, and the persistence itself is meaningful. Humanity has always sensed that the moon is more than it appears. Consider the eerie alignment of ancient structures with the moon. Stonehenge in England, for example, is not only a solar calendar, but also tracks lunar cycles with astonishing precision. The mound builders of North America created earthworks aligned with major lunar standstills, events that only occur once every 18.6 years. Why would ancient peoples, without telescopes or modern mathematics, go to such extraordinary lengths to track the moon unless they believed it held extraordinary significance? Some suggest they were paying attention to a cosmic overseer, marking its patterns as one might track the movements of a king. To dismiss all of this as coincidence is possible, but to look at it another way is to see a thread running through the fabric of human culture, a thread pointing back to a central hidden truth. The moon may be far more than a satellite. It may be the most ancient artifact in our possession, a monument so massive we mistook it for part of nature itself. And the stories, the myths, the whispers of a time before the moon, these may be the cracks in the disguise, the clues left for us to follow. The great question, then, is whether these myths were meant to be forgotten or remembered. Did the builders of the moon intend for us to one day uncover the truth, or did they hope the disguise would hold forever, hiding their work in plain sight? If the answer lies anywhere, it is not in the myths themselves, but in the moon's silent, ancient stone.
Part 5. Watching the Watchers, the Moon as a Surveillance System. If we take seriously the hypothesis that the moon was constructed, not simply as a stabilizer for Earth's orbit, but as a functional station, then the next unsettling possibility arises. It may still be operational. In other words, the moon might not just be a relic of an ancient civilization, but an active piece of technology designed to watch, record, and perhaps even influence life on Earth. Modern society is no stranger to surveillance. From satellites orbiting above us to cameras embedded in our cities, we know the power of observation to guide, to control, and to predict behavior. Now imagine this concept scaled to the planetary level. What if the moon itself serves as the ultimate surveillance device, installed long before human civilization emerged? There are clues that lend themselves to this interpretation. One is the phenomenon known as transient lunar phenomena, or TLPs. For centuries, astronomers have reported strange flashes, glowing mists, or pulsating lights emanating from the moon's surface.
Though mainstream science attributes some of these to outgassing or meteor strikes, the frequency and consistency of sightings suggest a more puzzling explanation. Could these be signs of machinery still at work? Sensors adjusting, signals transmitting, or maintenance cycles continuing? During the Apollo missions, astronauts themselves reported feeling watched. Buzz Aldrin later hinted at strange encounters during Apollo 11, where unidentified objects seemed to shadow the spacecraft. Official transcripts often omit or sanitize these moments, but whispers from within NASA suggest that astronauts saw things they could not explain. If true, were these watchers simply anomalies, or the moon's system responding to intruders? The very position of the moon supports this surveillance theory. Its synchronous rotation means one side, the dark side, is forever hidden from Earth's view. This concealed hemisphere could house vast installations, shielded from observation until modern spacecraft finally mapped it. Even then, photographs reveal unusual structures, spires, domes, and angular formations that some argue cannot be purely natural. While mainstream scientists label them geological oddities, others suggest they are remnants or active parts of an ancient surveillance architecture. If the moon functions as a monitoring station, the purpose becomes critical to consider. Who would need such surveillance, and why? Three possibilities emerge. Extraterrestrial custodians. An alien civilization could have installed the moon to observe Earth as a kind of cosmic preserve, ensuring that life develops under controlled conditions. The moon would then be both watchtower and laboratory. A human legacy. If advanced civilizations existed on Earth before recorded history, perhaps they built the moon themselves, leaving it as both a stabilizer and a recorder of future humanity's rise. In this sense, the moon could be our own forgotten creation. Or simulation control. Some philosophers speculate that reality itself is a kind of programmed simulation. If so, the moon could be part of the hardware or software of that system, a node that monitors the simulation's stability and feeds data back to its creators. Regardless of which theory resonates, the moon's presence feels far from passive. Every night it gazes down, unchanging, unmoving, silent. Humanity has grown used to it. But what if that familiarity is itself the trick? What if the moon has always been the eye in the sky, a reminder that we are not alone and perhaps never have been?
Part 6. The psychological and cultural effects of living under the moon's gaze. If the moon is more than a passive rock in the sky, if it is, in fact, a constructed overseer, then its influence on humanity goes beyond physical tides and orbital stability. It reaches deep into the human mind, shaping our myths, fears, rituals, and even our collective psychology. For millennia, we have lived under its gaze. Whether consciously or unconsciously, the moon has molded human civilization in ways we are only beginning to understand. The moon as a shaper of belief. The moon has always been a constant in the human experience. Unlike wandering stars, planets, it appears fixed in its relationship to Earth, reliable, predictable, cyclical. Early humans looked up and saw a perfect timekeeper. Entire calendars, from Babylonian to Mayan, were built around its phases. This gave the moon a divine aura, not just a celestial body, but a cosmic regulator of life. Religions across the globe absorbed the moon into their frameworks. Fertility goddesses were linked to the lunar cycle, mirroring the rhythms of human reproduction.
Hunters used moonlight for guidance, while farmers depended on its timing for planting and harvesting. The moon became synonymous with destiny itself. If it was truly a surveillance system, then it succeeded brilliantly. Its very presence convinced humanity to assign it meaning and obedience. The moon and the collective subconscious. Carl Jung once spoke of archetypes, universal symbols embedded in the human psyche. Few symbols are as universal as the moon. It appears in dreams, poetry, and art as a watcher, a mirror, or a mysterious companion. In many cultures, the moon represents hidden truths, the subconscious mind, and the unseen forces that guide us. Now imagine this effect magnified over tens of thousands of years. If the moon were deliberately placed to influence psychology, then its greatest success has been to embed itself as a universal archetype, an ever-present reminder of higher powers, of being observed, of destiny beyond our control. Humanity, under constant observation, internalized the watcher into its very psyche. Lunar cycles and behavior. Modern science has documented peculiar correlations between the moon and human behavior. Police departments around the world report spikes in crime and disturbances during full moons. Hospitals note fluctuations in emergency cases. Folklore about lunacy, derived from luna, Latin for moon, is more than superstition. It reflects real patterns that continue to baffle researchers. If the moon is a machine, could it be emitting subtle fields, gravitational, electromagnetic, or otherwise, that influence human biology? What we dismiss as coincidence or myth might actually be engineered behavioral nudges, designed to keep humanity aligned with certain rhythms. Cultural control through awe. The moon's most dramatic influence comes during eclipses. Ancient rulers used eclipses to manipulate populations, presenting them as omens of divine will. Entire empires rose and fell based on lunar events. If the moon were designed to trigger awe and fear, eclipses are its ultimate instrument, a rare but powerful reminder that the heavens are not random, but orchestrated. Even today, eclipses captivate modern societies, drawing millions of people to stop, look, and feel small before the cosmos. The moon retains its psychological grip, a timeless power over both ancient shamans and modern scientists. Living with the eye in the sky. Whether natural or artificial, the moon has been humanity's constant companion. But if it was built with intention, if it was designed to observe and influence, then its cultural role becomes more than symbolic. Every myth, ritual, and superstition surrounding it may have been exactly what the builders wanted, a way to shape human consciousness from the dawn of civilization. We may think of ourselves as free, evolving by our own choices. Yet under the moon's eternal gaze, perhaps we have always been subjects of an experiment, watched, guided, nudged, and controlled by forces hidden behind its pale, reflective surface.
Part 8. The Moon in Conspiracy Theories and Popular Culture. The moon has always been more than a barren rock orbiting Earth. In the public imagination, it is a mirror for human fears, hopes, and mysteries. While scientists study its geology, millions of people around the world consume alternative stories about the moon. Stories that paint it as artificial, inhabited, or even weaponized. Whether through internet forums, late-night radio shows, or blockbuster films, the moon continues to fuel the human appetite for mystery. Conspiracy theories that refuse to die. One of the most persistent claims is that the Apollo missions revealed something extraordinary that was hidden from the public. In this narrative, astronauts saw alien structures, lights, or even entire bases on the far side of the moon. Photographs released by NASA have been scrutinized endlessly, with enthusiasts pointing to blurred pixels, odd shadows, or unusual shapes that supposedly indicate evidence of intelligent construction. Critics call this pareidolia, the human tendency to see patterns where none exist. But for believers, these anomalies are proof of a cover-up. Another theory suggests that the moon is hollow, a vast structure rather than a natural satellite. This idea gained traction in the 1970s when NASA experiments measuring seismic activity produced unusual results. When Apollo astronauts dropped spent modules onto the moon, seismometers detected reverberations that lasted much longer than expected, leading some to say the moon rang like a bell. While geologists attribute this to the moon's dry, fractured interior, conspiracy theorists embraced the phrase as evidence of an artificial shell. There are also darker claims that the moon is used as a surveillance platform, watching Earth and transmitting data to unknown entities. In some versions, it is controlled by extraterrestrials. In others, it is part of a secret Earth-based government project. These stories often overlap with UFO lore, Roswell mythology, and Cold War anxieties about hidden technologies. The moon in movies, TV, and literature. Conspiracies thrive in part because of the moon's powerful place in culture. Science fiction has repeatedly explored the idea of a mysterious or artificial moon. Films like 2001: A Space Odyssey in 1968 depicted alien monoliths hidden beneath the lunar surface, while more recent movies imagine secret Nazi bases in Iron Sky or alien civilizations using the moon as a staging ground. On TV, shows like The X-Files and Ancient Aliens routinely link the moon to broader questions of extraterrestrial presence. Documentaries often blur the line between scientific speculation and myth, creating fertile ground for wild ideas to take root. Even video games like Destiny or Mass Effect depict the moon as a site of ancient mystery or alien technology, embedding the idea into the collective imagination of younger generations. Books, too, have carried these themes forward. From early pulp fictions in the 19th century, imagining lunar civilizations, to modern speculative nonfiction about hidden bases, the moon serves as a stage for storytelling that mixes fact and fantasy. Why the moon captures the conspiratorial mind. Conspiracies around the moon thrive because the moon itself is both familiar and alien. We see it every night, yet we cannot touch it directly. Its surface is mapped, yet its far side remains shrouded in mystery for the naked eye. Unlike Mars or Jupiter, the moon is close enough to feel personal, but distant enough to remain largely inaccessible. The secrecy of government space programs during the Cold War only added fuel to the fire. If agencies could hide advanced technologies, why not hide discoveries as well? The moon became the perfect canvas for projecting suspicion. At the same time, the moon's symbolic weight, linked to madness, transformation, and the unknown, makes it irresistible as a conspiratorial subject. To many, it feels too important, too strange, and too convenient to be just a natural satellite. The entertainment factor. Finally, conspiracy theories about the moon persist because they entertain. They inspire wonder, creativity, and community among those who share them. Entire online subcultures exist around dissecting lunar photos, debating theories, and creating artwork or stories inspired by the idea of a hollow or artificial moon. Whether or not the claims are true, they enrich culture by keeping the moon alive as a symbol of mystery.
Part 9. Scientific Rebuttals and Skeptical Views. The fascination with the moon as an artificial object, surveillance base, or alien structure thrives in conspiracy circles, but mainstream science tells a very different story.
To scientists, the moon is not a riddle left by extraterrestrials, but a natural body with an origin and evolution that can be traced through geology, physics, and chemistry. This part examines how experts respond to the most persistent claims and why skeptics insist that the moon's mysteries, while real, are not supernatural. 1. The hollow moon argument. When Apollo missions left seismometers on the lunar surface, the results of controlled impacts shocked many. Rockets crashed into the moon caused reverberations that lasted longer than expected. Conspiracy writers seized on the phrase "rang like a bell," claiming it meant the moon must be hollow. Scientists, however, explained the phenomenon differently. Earth's seismic waves are dampened by its water-rich convective mantle. The moon, by contrast, is dry, rigid, and fractured, allowing vibrations to travel farther without losing energy. Far from being hollow, seismic data indicates the moon has a solid crust, mantle, and core, though structured differently than Earth's interior. 2. Alien structures and anomalous photos. Claims of lunar bases or glass domes often originate in blurry NASA photographs. Conspiracy theorists point to unusual shadows or shapes, interpreting them as alien architecture. But imaging specialists argue these anomalies are the result of low resolution, light scattering, or digital artifacts. Higher resolution images taken by later missions, such as the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter, show no evidence of artificial structures. The far side of the moon, once imagined as the perfect hiding spot for alien bases, has now been extensively mapped. Craters, mountains, and lava plains dominate the landscape, with no trace of machinery or cities. 3. The moon as a spaceship hypothesis. The idea that the moon is an artificial object, perhaps a colossal spaceship, was popularized by fringe authors in the 1970s. They cited its unusual density, orbital patterns, and tidal effects as too perfect to be natural. Astrophysicists counter that while the moon is unusual in some respects, it fits within known models of planetary science. The prevailing explanation, the giant impact hypothesis, holds that the moon formed when a giant Mars-sized body collided with early Earth. Debris from the collision eventually coalesced into the moon. Evidence supporting this includes similarities in isotopic composition between lunar rocks and Earth's mantle, which strongly suggests a shared origin. 4. Apollo cover-up claims. Conspiracists often argue that astronauts saw more than they were allowed to reveal. Some point to unusual audio recordings or claim video footage was edited. NASA's secrecy during the Cold War, combined with human imagination, amplified these suspicions. Skeptics, however, note that thousands of scientists and engineers and technicians worked on Apollo, making a massive cover-up unlikely. Moreover, samples of lunar rock brought back, over 800 pounds of them, have been studied worldwide and found to be distinct from Earth rocks, confirming a lunar origin. 5. Why skeptics push back. For skeptics, addressing moon conspiracies is not just about defending science, but about protecting public trust. If people reject well-supported scientific explanations in favor of elaborate conspiracies, it undermines education and fosters mistrust of institutions. Scientists also argue that the real mysteries of the moon, its geological history, its role in Earth's evolution, and its future as a base for human exploration are fascinating enough without resorting to fiction. 6. The skeptical mindset. Skeptics emphasize critical thinking. They argue that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. A blurry photo or ambiguous phrase is not enough to overturn decades of data collected by multiple independent missions. Instead, they urge the public to appreciate the moon as a natural wonder whose mysteries can be solved through inquiry, not speculation.
Part 10. Psychological and symbolic interpretations of the moon. The moon has always been more than an astronomical body. It is a psychological symbol, a mirror reflecting the inner life of humanity. Across cultures and eras, people have projected fears, desires, and archetypes onto its pale light. To understand why so many alternative theories about the moon thrive, one must look not just at science, but at psychology and symbolism. Unlike stars that are distant points of light, the moon looms close, its surface visible to the naked eye. Craters and shadows suggest shapes, almost faces, staring back at us. This familiarity creates intimacy, while its distance keeps it unreachable. Psychologists note that such paradox, close yet untouchable, makes the moon an ideal canvas for projection. We see what we want to see: gods, monsters, civilizations, or machines. Carl Jung, the Swiss psychologist, described archetypes, universal symbols that emerge in myths and dreams across cultures. The moon fits the archetype of the mysterious feminine, cyclical, hidden, transformative. It waxes and wanes like time, like seasons, like life itself. In dreams, the moon often symbolizes the unconscious mind, the hidden aspects of self that surface at night. When people imagine the moon as hollow, artificial, or controlled, it may reflect anxieties about manipulation and hidden forces in their lives. When myths portray it as a goddess or watchful eye, it may express the human longing for connection, guidance, or surveillance from above. The word lunacy derives from luna, Latin for moon. For centuries, people believed the full moon caused madness, heightened crime, or strange behavior. While studies show mixed evidence for such claims, the persistence of the belief highlights the moon's psychological power. Folklore links werewolves, witches, and night wanderers to the lunar cycle. Transformation, whether of body, mind, or destiny, has long been tied to its light. This symbolism persists in popular culture, shaping how conspiracy theories gain traction. If the moon can change us, maybe it can also hide truths about itself. The idea of the moon as an artificial observer fits into a broader archetype, the all-seeing eye. Humans have long feared being watched by gods, spirits, or secret powers. The moon, ever present in the sky, easily becomes a symbol of surveillance. Its cycles make it feel intentional, almost like a cosmic clock. From a psychological standpoint, believing the moon is a constructed monitor may express deep-seated anxiety about control, loss of privacy, or cosmic insignificance. In a world where governments, corporations, and technologies track behavior, projecting that fear onto the moon feels natural. At the same time, the moon offers comfort. Its light is soft, guiding travelers at night. In many cultures, the moon is associated with motherhood, nurturing, and protection. To imagine it as a guardian or overseer is not always threatening. For some, it is reassuring. The artificial moon theory in this sense becomes less a fear of surveillance and more a fantasy of cosmic care, that someone or something watches over humanity to ensure survival. Psychological interpretations help explain why moon conspiracies persist even in the face of scientific rebuttals. Myths and archetypes speak to emotional truth, not empirical truth. A hollow moon resonates not because it's likely, but because it symbolizes hidden depths within ourselves. A constructed moon resonates not because engineers built it, but because humans crave a sense of purpose and design in the cosmos. In this sense, the symbolic moon may be just as important as the real moon. It reveals not only the geology of another world, but the inner geology of human imagination. Conclusion: the eternal mystery of the moon. From myths of goddesses and silver eyes in the sky to modern scientific missions and conspiracy theories, the moon has never stopped captivating humanity. It stands as both a physical reality, a rocky satellite born of cosmic violence, and a timeless symbol of the unknown. For some, it is a natural wonder. For others, perhaps a carefully constructed artifact, a cosmic watchtower placed above us. The truth may ultimately be found not in speculation but in exploration. Humanity is on the verge of returning to the moon, building bases and perhaps uncovering answers to questions that have lingered for millennia. Yet even if science resolves every geological riddle, the moon will remain more than just rock and dust. It is part of our imagination, our dreams, and our fears, a mirror of ourselves. Maybe the question isn't only, what if the moon was built to watch over us, but also, what does our fascination with that idea reveal about who we are?